not all of AMBIT applies equally to all teams in exactly the same kind of way. So we wanted to start by saying, trying to get you to focus on what are the key things that actually apply to your service most. And obviously we think all of it applies to some degree, but we're trying to say which bit applies to you most. So we're going to give you, this is a form called the APrAT because we're childish. But it's basically just an audit form. It's very simple. It's just 9 questions, which just summarises the kind of main aspects of AMBIT. What we'd like you to do is just run through. We don't want to get this overcomplicated. It's just a way of reminding you of the main things that are involved in the AMBIT approach. What we just want you to do, I'm going to give you 10 minutes tops on this. I want you to decide which ones are more important to your team than others. And I just want to, we're not saying some are completely irrelevant, but we want you to just go through them. You can have a conversation together. You can do it, I don't mind how you do it, but you haven't got long. It's just to kind of at each team to decide which ones, if I was going to say, what do I want my team to be doing in 12 months' time, which bit of this would I really be delighted that we're really on top of? Then I just want you to sort of highlight that, because then that might help you to tailor what your training plan is, because then it might give you a little bit more, be a bit more focused. If you come back and say, well, we're going to do it all, that's completely fine. And
it might be just worth saying, so the idea about the APrAT is that you really audit around a case, a specific case. It's not a sort of general. So it's worth thinking about a specific case that your team has been managing or dealing with that is not sort of a total outlier that amazingly enough was a disaster or was a complete success, but that is kind of a fairly typical kind of puzzle that you guys get into. Those are the ones that are most useful to do. I mean, if it's a complete outlier that is so extreme that you're only going to meet one every 20 years, you don't really want to configure your team around that. But you do want to configure your team around the kinds of cases that you sort of run up against and everybody knows this is one of those again. Yeah? Yeah. So try and think of a real case. So if there are 2 of you, try and agree one together and have a bit of discussion about this. So in one sense, you're not doing this as a small group. We would like you to do this in pairs. Yeah? Yeah? And hopefully it's just really just an invitation to help people reflect on the practice that they're doing. There are lots of other ways to do it, but it's a methodical way of trying to reflect on practice in a team.
Sorry, I want you just to feedback within your own group the priorities that you've come up with and why. Okay, and I'm going to give you just a 5-minute conversation. Which things have you come up with as a priority, and just share them with each other as to why you've chosen those as your priority. What I'd like you to do on to the next step is, okay, so you've got your objectives. Hopefully you've shared them. Okay, the next thing is I want you to think about who is going to help with this development of your team. Now, obviously, you guys, we're kind of assuming you guys are going to help, I hope. But we want to just broaden if you're going to do some training or some development work, who is going to help with that? So I just want you to have a bit of because we've got to work out, you've got a priority, we've got to work out what the resources are. There's 2 things you've got to work out. Who's going to do this, and when are you going to do it? Okay? Now, bear in mind, we're not now restricted to a trainer and a training afternoon. There might be many different ways of thinking about this. I sort of overheard Peter talking about a speech and language therapist who might be helpful to you. So that there might be sort of ways in which you might be thinking there are people who can help with this that aren't necessarily you guys. So in your training plan, who's going to do stuff and when are you going to do it? And if you can, a tip, obviously follows on from this morning, the more you can use existing structures, the better. Anything you try and do additional is going to cause you some difficulties. So I'm going to give you about 10 minutes now just to try for. So the same thing, if you want to have a conversation with your colleague first and then feedback to the team, or you want to have a conversation altogether, I'll leave that to you. Well, no, let me suggest it. Can you have a conversation with your colleague first for a few minutes, see if you can work out who and when you're going to do this training event, and then share it with the wider team. Okay?
It doesn't have to be training again, does it?
No, it doesn't have to be training, but how you're going to implement the things that are a priority for you. Okay? Quite right, Nina. It doesn't have to be a training event. It could be, for example, sorry, just to say, it could be like you're just going to get all your supervisors to sing the same tune. That would be, so that's not, it's using existing structures, but they become part of who. So can you just share into your small groups and just share your, your ideas about who's going to help you and when are you going to do it? Okay, I just want to, again, just because we want to, by quarter 2, we're going to finish this loop and then you're going to put it in your manual. So I just want to, who is going to help you and when are you going to do it, okay, as part of trying to get your objectives formed. Okay? Thank you. Okay, the last bit that I want you is that if you've worked out who and you've worked out when, now you just have to work out how. Okay, so you've got what, that's your objectives, who's going to do it, when you're going to do it, and then how you're going to do it. Now some of you are already having conversations about how already, I got that. But I just want you to just gone through the sequence. So I just having a how, what's the, and it isn't, as you're all saying, it isn't about somebody standing up in front and saying, yeah, well, I'll give you a speech on this. We kind of got a feeling that isn't going to be the method of how you're going to go about it. So again, I just want you to just go, okay, what are the ways that you can influence, shape, improve, support, practice around your objectives? Again, can you just have a, we're just about on schedule. So can you just have a few minutes conversation with your colleague within your own team, and then I want you to feed it back to the whole group. Okay? I haven't gone through, everybody had a chance to speak, but we're going to keep to schedule. Now, what we'd like you now to do is, to complete the cycle, we want you to write a page in your manual which describes your training plan. With those headings, what you're going to do, who, when, and how. Now, we want you to write this page as if you're writing it for a member of your team. If you're very brave, you can email it to your team in 15 minutes. There's a snapshot, you can do this. I'm just wanting to again convey the immediacy of this. That this is, the idea is that this doesn't have to be, you don't have to do that if it doesn't feel appropriate. But what we would like you to do, we're going to give you 15 minutes to write a page in your manual that you could, if somebody said, what's the training plan? You could just say, this has been written. And so it's understandable to a member of your team. Not full of old jargon, we're going to do the wheel back to front, upside down with a lot of old nonsense. It's going to be a page that they could understand what's in it for your team. Okay? So just, it doesn't have to be, it's not an essay, but what are you going to do, who's going to do it, when are you going to do it, and how are you going to do it. Okay? Just 4 headings. So can you get your laptops out, folks, and just in your separate teams, just put that into your manual.